Hey guys, Rob from Georgia here with you, aka VHS82 apostrophe, with another edition of my Crazy Vibes. Episode 10. Had to do something special for 10, right? That year that was 1982. A little bit of why my call sign's VHS82 apostrophe. VHS is the format I grew up with, and 82 is my favorite year for film, man. What a year. If you happen to have the Aerial edition of The Thing, there is a short documentary on there called 1982 in One Amazing Summer, I think is what it is. And they detail the entire summer, and it is amazing. Just an amazing doc. Now, it's not all horror-centered, right? There's a few things that do pop up. But just to remind you how great of a summer it was, and just how great of a year it was, actually, in general. I was reminded by many reasons why I love 1982. I don't think much about this film now in my older years, but at the time when it first broke out, who didn't get caught up in the swell of it? E.T., right? I mean, comes out in 82. Rocky 3, man, the most entertaining of the Rocky entries. My personal most entertaining one. Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan, 1982. I would have seen that in the theater easily, as well as Rocky 3. I'm sure I probably saw E.T. in the theater. Conan the Barbarian came out in 82. A film that I can't remember if I saw when I was 12, but I would see it later on, of course, Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Sean Penn's Spicoli, who could forget that? What, maybe the greatest sci-fi film ever. Sir Ridley Scott's Blade Runner, right? Swamp Thing, Amityville 2, The Possession. We could go on and on and on and on, but also, I've got to mention Firefox, Clint Eastwood. I did see that in the theater. It was not my purpose to see it in the theater. My purpose was for me and my buddy to go see The Thing. And as you would have it, we get in there, and I have this thing about I got to go look at the movie posters, right? And so we go over to look at the movie poster for The Thing, getting ready to make our way in there. He chickened out. He just chickened out. He would not. I was so mad. I was so furious. And back then, in those days, the theaters were really, the walls were paper thin. You could hear the movie on the other side. And so for the entire time I watched Firefox, I was hearing The Thing. And I think more than 10 times, I probably hit him on the shoulder to remind him just how angry I was. It was miserable. Ultimately in life, I did finally get to see The Thing on the big screen. So all is well, I guess, as far as that goes. So big year, 1982, but the early 80s, mid 80s, what wasn't a big year? But 1982 was a bit of a special year. But for the Crazy Fives, of course, we look at primarily horror, and so I just picked 5. That one, Outside Looking In, of course, is the one you see up here. And that is, of course, The Beast Within. The thing I remember most about this, other than renting it on VHS, was who did that? MGM United Artists released this, directed by Felipe Mora. The big selling point on the TV spots was you're not going to last you won't make it through the last 30 minutes. Just really sold itself on the practicals, transformational practicals at the end. The creature effects, the monster, right? It's a monster flick. I always forget that Ronnie Cox is in this thing. But that is, I really do need an upgrade probably on this one. The Beast Within, Outside Looking In. All right, let's get into the Crazy Fives. So we're not, I do things chronologically, so I had to look really carefully to see when things came out at what particular time in the summer. So still going chronological, all right? Here we go. At number 5, it came to the theater November 10th. It was ultimately released on video by Warner Home Video. Of course, we are talking George A. Romero's Creepshow. This is my UK edition I picked up before Scream Factory ever released it. And just so happens Just Desserts is on this thing, and so it pays to go UK sometimes. But maybe the greatest anthology ever. I think my favorite in here is I think I'll just go with The Crate. I think The Crate Father's Day is an annual tradition in my house. Watched it again this year, but The Crate I think is my personal favorite. Although each and every one of them is pretty freaking awesome in its own right. Creepshow from George A. Romero and Stephen King, part of that production. All right, number 4, premiered. You're going to know what it is as soon as I tell you when it premiered, but it was the month of August. It was a Friday. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, it was the 13th. We are, of course, and I wish I had a better edition to show off. I got the cheap Walmart 8-film set still. I got a few select releases for some of the other Fridays, but not part 3, unfortunately. But we are talking Friday 3 in 3D. The gimmick, it was released in 3D. I don't know how as a 12-year-old, I can't remember who went with me, but I did see it. It was one of the greatest 3D films I'd ever seen up to that point. This was, it was so much fun, man. Being in the theater, and I remember ducking and thinking the harpoon was coming out of the, of course you just had the red, what was it, red and blue, red and green glasses. But of course, Jason gets his hockey mask, and of course, this is good. This is a great fall lead-in, right? In '82, Jason gets his hockey mask. How iconic would that become in terms of just iconic. Friday the 13th, Part 3 in 3D, actually released on the 13th, Friday the 13th in August. Number 3, if I were doing this list any other way, this would probably be, I'm sure, be number 1, but as it was released on June 25th, and I didn't say, of course, should be known, Friday the 13th was released on VHS via Paramount, of course. But number 3 was released by MCA Universal. I have it on my shelf, that first initial release of it on VHS. We are, of course, talking, there goes my screen, talking about John Carpenter's masterpiece of terror, The Thing. And this is the edition I was talking about, by Ballyhoo Pictures, 1982, One Amazing Summer. Great documentary. If you happen to have this edition on your shelf and you haven't combed through the extras, it's worth, man. It's just for nostalgia, it's worth it. I'm not going to say anything else about this. We all know The Thing. The Thing is one of the greatest. It wasn't received as it should have been in the moment. Everything kind of got caught up underneath the shroud that was E.T. And unfortunately, too, Blade Runner, I don't think was received as well either. But today, we talk about films like Blade Runner and The Thing. I don't ever hear anyone talking about E.T. Number 2 is one of my favorite of these types of films. It is a sort of a creature feature, I guess. It's Island Horror. First dropped in the theater. I wish I could say I remember seeing it. I don't on the big screen, but I do remember renting it on via Embassy home video. And that is June 11th, did I say? June 11th at first. It's a Paul Lynch film. Of course, we are talking humongous. This is, I believe, the Scorpion release of this. But this is not the cover I knew in the VHS days. This was the cover I remember. And I'm so glad. What is this? Yeah, Scorpion releasing. I'm so glad they left the original artwork intact, because this was, I can't tell you how many times I came home from the video store and this was in the pile I had. Humongous. Island Horror, man. And it has an ending, if I remember this film right, it has an ending very reminiscent of Friday the 13th Part 2. Yeah. Here are the monsters' little toys. Once they were little girls and boys. Canadian film, Love it. It's loose, it's angry, and it's getting hungry. Humongous. The TV spots for this were absolutely fantastic. Fan-stinking-tastic. Let's see if I can get this back in the slip. All right, number one. Alrighty, it's just great about Crazy Fives. They go kind of quick. I wish I had a better edition of this one to show you. This was first dropped in the theater on the big screen June 4th. Again, I wish I could say I had a memory of seeing this, although it would shock me to find out that we didn't go, because this became an absolute staple of family viewing in my house. This is just one of those rare films that I remember. If it was going to be, I think probably on HBO or whatever, we would sit down. If we hadn't rented it, we were going to sit down, popcorn in the living room, the whole family, me and my mom and dad, the whole family. This was an absolute, almost as an iconic family must sit together and watch this, as with maybe Jaws coming out on, being on TV, or The Wizard of Oz. This thing, I have very fond memories of watching this with my parents, and it just, and even today I watch it, and I really do need a better edition of this. Again, MGM, United Artists. It is, of course, Tobe Hooper's Poltergeist. I don't know what you really can say about this. This is one of the greatest haunted house / ghost / poltergeist. The cast, Craig T. Nelson, is so freaking awesome. And JoBeth Williams, and Beatrice Straight, of course. The music by Jerry Goldsmith. Of course, you have Steven Spielberg produces it. So there is, from the minute this film begins, Steven's hands are on it. I mean, it feels like a Steven, but then there are a Steven film. It's sort of like Howard Hawks and Christian Nyby, right? Although I do believe this is more Tobe Hooper's film than The Thing from Another World in 51 was Christian Nyby's film. I really do believe Howard Hawks really had a firm implant on that film. Although Christian does get the directing credits, Tobe, there are scenes in here that are so Tobe-esque. I do believe, but I do believe this should happen more often. A guy like Tobe Hooper, who, of course, he himself directed probably the greatest single horror film in the history of horror films. It works with a man like Steven Spielberg, who I'm sure allowed Tobe to have the amount of creative freedom that maybe with a big studio production like this would not have had if not for Steven Spielberg. I don't know the whole story behind. I know it gets a lot of talk about, who really directed it and who didn't and all this junk. And I've heard enough, though. I've heard enough. I feel pretty comfortable that this is Tobe's film. But it does have that Spielbergian type vibe right from the beginning. But there are scenes in here, quite frankly, I don't think Steven could have directed. Tobe directed. The guy who gave us the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That I'm thinking specifically the hallway scene. That whole hallway scene, man. And of course, it's corpses coming up out of the earth, and I know Steven's done visuals like that and stuff, but this is just a nice. I wish we saw more of this kind of work relationship between. We could have seen it with Guillermo del Toro James Cameron. James Cameron was gonna produce Guillermo del Toro's At the Mountains of Madness. Nearly had a green light, and then the rug got pulled out from under it, and the studio backed out, got cold feet. And that could have been one of the most amazing Lovecraft adapted stories ever. For the moment, I would have to say probably, it's probably The Color Out of Space. Hardware director. I don't know. I'm having a mind block. Y'all know who I mean. So anyways, 1982. What's your favorite year? Do you have a favorite year for film? Drop it down below. Let me know. Hit that sub. If you've never subbed me, I appreciate it. Hit the like button. Yeah, and we'll continue along. I think I have an idea for episode 11, but remember, these go every other week. Next up will be Italy's Holocaust, and most likely, probably, I know you shouldn't say this out in front of yourself, but I'm heavy leaning Cannibal Apocalypse. If you haven't seen my last one, The New York Ripper, check that out. Anyhow, always appreciate the support. Thank you so much. And yes, 1982 was one amazing summer. Go Bills.
This is not a dream. Not a dream. We might be useful.